right, welcome back to another episode here. This is focused on the class Techspertise, which is technology plus expertise. The first two episodes talked about what the class is all about, and in this third episode, I want to talk about sketchnoting, mind mapping, visual thinking, visual diagramming. It comes in all different names. I'm going to try having my image in Google Slides, which allows me to have this nice little laser pointer, but it means the resolution is not going to be the best. So you can always refer to the higher res um, image. Okay, so part of what you've seen so far is a way to express your ideas visually that is a combination of words and little sketches. And so I'm just going to go through different parts of this. And if you want to learn, like most of these things, you kind of have to actually do it. Um, and we'll have some other videos later on that. So everyone can draw. All right, I think this piece right here for most people, and I'm kind of focused on adults, although older students it might apply to. Um, Unless they're already artistically inclined and actively draw, most people will be like, I can't draw. And sometimes it's because of something that happened when they were younger. And I know that most art teachers or teachers that are having students do art in their class, they don't mean to give the students a bad experience, but it just might not turn out well. Um, and yet, I think it's so important to be able to draw. Um, you will improve with practice, and then it's about the ideas, not the art. If you want to be artistic, quote unquote, you can. And like I said in a previous episode, you should really respect whatever style the teacher is learning. And ultimately, when you become an artist of your own or another. You become an independent idea communicator. As long as you can get the message across, that's what matters. Part of this learning is being exposed to different styles. Okay, let's kind of just move around here. So we have different elements here. You can have different fonts, lettering, the style of words, what sort of emotion. We could probably do a whole episode on typography and the different types of typefaces and fonts. Bullets are helpful. Bullets just mean some sort of point, all right? Some people don't like to use the word bullets. You can use whatever thing you want, but that's what they're commonly referred to as, and they're emphasis points. You can have these little frames and sort of highlights groups of words. Connectors. This is very important. Typically use sort of a line and an arrow, but it helps you to follow the reasoning in communication. You can also use shadows, and that portrays depth. And having sort of items that connect it with people, because ultimately you're connecting and communicating with other people. Okay, let's keep going. Let's follow this reasoning. So here is we're trying to express our thinking, express our understanding, and it's first really to yourself. Even myself, as I made these three sketch notes for class, I was able to reflect a lot on and sort of deepen my understanding of what I wanted to get across. So the very action of doing this will solidify. Now, as you do this, okay, you want it to be legible enough. It doesn't have to be neat and perfect. We know many people, you could probably name people, friends, colleagues who have this really good handwriting, and you're just jealous. I would be jealous. And you're just like, why do I even bother? But no, you need to communicate your ideas. Your ideas are important. You might think it's a silly or quote unquote stupid idea, but you saying it, right? One, it might not be all that obvious. And then number two, even if it is obvious, it can help trigger in a positive way, ideas for someone else. So, anyways, it doesn't have to be perfect, but can you read and decipher it? And if you ask my mom, she'll tell you growing up, and even now, I still need to work on my legibility. Okay, credit where credit is due. One person here is Sylvia Duckworth. She makes these awesome resources online, especially Google Slides. There's an accompanying sketchnoting website on our Techspertise page. Also, Mike Road. I don't know if that's quite how you pronounce it. He has made a whole series of resources on sketchnoting. There's so much out there. Bottom line is express your ideas using words and sketches. Oh, and a third person, Dan Rome. He did the back of the napkin, and he has a bunch of resources there. Okay, let's talk a bit more about structure. So, like the flow of ideas, and these sort of broken down points. These are I did not come up with these. These are from the various resources I just mentioned. So you can have sort of more of a linear flow. You can have a web of ideas. You can have different sections, columns and rows. That's sort of like linear, just sort of a free flowing path, and then random. The way I take notes, maybe you can tell from here, I kind of have sections, but it's sort of a free path. Rarely when I do these things do I plan it out. Maybe I'll have a couple ideas. Maybe I'm basing it off an existing visual, but mine is definitely very free flow. Okay, let's keep going. Sort of like, what's the main point? Um, I like to say Pictionary level. So if you think of the game Pictionary, the person whose turn it is to draw, there is a word in front of them written on a piece of paper. His or her team, does not know what that item is. And they have to draw something so that his team will say the word. So it's okay if it's not a perfect apple, but as long as you can get the idea apple across, that's all we are going for. Another thing about this sort of process, especially when you're developing ideas, is that it's unpredictable. You don't know what the final sketch note looks like. So again, especially, I think both in a divergent thinking phase where it's sort of you're flaring out, and also convergent where you're trying to make decisions. I think this process of being willing to just dump out your thoughts um, is a good skill to learn. And you can also just think of it as doodling with a purpose. It's okay if the space is not completely filled. All right. If you think about graphic design, there's sort of a concept of contrast and balance, and sometimes you want to fit a lot of information, and it's okay if it's not completely filled. And actually, this is important because I think often students will try to like really just fit in everything. This actually comes about in sort of analytical contexts such as math and formulas, but give it some space. And first, it just sort of is nice on the eye. And then, second, if you want to go back and fill in, then you can do that. And then, potentially, how you could iterate on this is you can then have this image, you scan it, you print it out, and then you can make another sketch note, another mind map. Based on that, you could consider it a version 2, or you could just think of it as the next step. Okay, so I think I've covered what I wanted to here. Again, more resources on our Techspertise website. 3 people in particular: Sylvia Duckworth, Mike Rode, if I have his name correct, and Dan Rome. They have really excellent resources, but at the end of the day, you just got to do it. Oh, and how could I forget? What if you need inspiration? All right, a good place to start are emojis or emoticons, very common in our day-to-day communication now. Pictograms, the best example is Olympic Games. Every time there's a new Olympic Games, they design sort of in a certain style a pictograph of each sport. The Noun Project is an excellent Creative Commons sort of kind of like open source resource where you have really simple drawings of everyday objects. I should include here in the next version AutoDraw, Google's AutoDraw. Google's AutoDraw is sort of like you make some strokes on your digital page and it will guess. It's kind of like auto suggestion for that. And they have some nice then vector art. And you can always search the term vector art for ways. And like a lot of types of art, you learn to copy what exists first before, as you develop the technique to be able to develop your original ideas. All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.